Hey guys, Ruin here with a new series I'm calling Better Than Nothing WoW Guides, because the guides are shitty, but they're better than nothing. Starting off the guide, intros suck and I don't have a ton of time, let's get right into it. Starting with stat priority, it's kind of a priority system. Number one is you want to make sure that your haste never drops below 20%. For me, I think the sweet spot for haste is about 25%. It's debatable, but try not to let it ever go below 20%. Crit, I'd say 20% is about the sweet spot, but try to never let it go between 16 to 18% I'd say is the minimum. Don't let it drop lower than 16 if you can help it. Mastery is once you've gotten crit and haste squared away, as much of it as you can get your hands on, and versatility is garbage. Overall stat priority, strength is really what's best for us right now. So if you see a piece of gear drop that you want, if you have to sacrifice a bit of mastery, as long as your haste and your crit are good enough, they've reached that minimum, you can take the upgrade with more strength on it, because that is what's best for us right now. Going right into the talents, currently right now Ebon Fever got buffed in the most recent hotfix, and it's doing a pretty large amount of damage right now, so most people are going to be taking that. Bursting Swords was really good and gives you better AoE damage if you're bursting a lot of wounds, especially if you're taking Infecting Claws with it in AoE. It might be better in Mythic Plus, but for now, I'm mainly talking raids, so go Ebon Fever. All Will Serve was decent before, if it was a boss you didn't get a lot of uptime on, but with Nighthold being the way it is, it's just not as good. Epidemic just kind of fell behind the other two choices right now. Blended Rune Weapon is good for really short fights, where you need to pop as many wounds as possible in the shortest amount of time, but on a longer raid boss it just falls behind Pestilent Pustules, and that's why people are taking that. Unholy Frenzy, it's debatable. Some people say it's doing pretty well, some people don't. But for the most part I haven't tested enough to say either way. With the Castigator build, that was more of a crit build, and since we're Mastery, we don't really focus on crit anymore. You can't really take advantage of it, and Clawing Shadows got buffed in 7.1.5, which is why we went in the Mastery build to begin with. It's just performing the best right now in the 58 row. In the 60 talent row, Slud Belcher is kind of the only DPS increase. The other two are situational. Asphyxiate's a good stun if you ever need it. And the other talent, which is pretty much non-existent PvE, it's terrible, don't ever take it. Spell Eater is a nice talent if you have the Legendary Cloak to make your anti-magic shell block a lot of damage. And with the cloak it even heals you a bit, so in general it gives you a really strong defensive on a relatively short cooldown, so it's definitely not a bad choice to consider if you have the legendary. Lingering Apparition is just more mobility, which is always nice, but that's up to you if you want to take it. For me, I find Corpse Shield to work out really well, giving you a third defensive that reduces all damage taken by 90%. Your ghoul takes it in your place, so you want to be careful how you use it. You don't want to pop it just to block something that would have killed you anyway, killing your ghoul in the process and lowering your damage. But any mechanic where you're out of defensives and that mechanic might kill you, it could save your life. It's really nice. In the 90 talent row, Shadow Infusion right now just fell behind. It's not really worth ever taking. There's a bit of a debate going on right now between Infected Claws and Necrosis. Infected Claws is pretty good in AoE situations, that's why I said in combination with Bursting Swords, or Ebon Fever even. It might perform better in Mythic Plus, just giving you more options how to AoE. But Necrosis right now, especially in single target, if you can take full advantage of it, and, you know, get the most damage out of it you can, I think it performs better than Infecting Claws right now. But if you have trouble taking full advantage of Necrosis by using the rotation properly, Infecting Claws is passive, and it might be better for you. That's just something you kind of got to test on a dummy and work out yourself. In the 100 talent tree, Dark Arbiter is really good for really short fights where you want to dump a ton of burst into like a minute-long fight. But on longer fights, like a raid boss, it just kind of falls behind the other two choices, depending on what legendary you have. If you have the legendary helmet, Defile is always better on AoE fights, like Spellblade or Scorpiron. On single target, it's debatable whether or not it's actually better. I haven't really done enough testing with it myself to be sure, but for me, in single target, Soul Reaper is king. You get a lot of haste, especially since I'm a little haste starved myself right now, and it does a good amount of damage. Just in general, I find that Soul Reaper is the best. Okay. Next, let's go over a little bit of the general rotation you're going to be using, and there will be a link in the description to a video of us doing, me with my guild doing normal Croesus, just so you can kind of see the rotation in action. But here is just a rough description of how it's going to go. Now, you want to pop your Army of the Dead a little bit before pull time. Why? Well, it costs 3 runes, and if you pop it at the beginning of combat when you're trying to get out your wounds so that you can get out your Soul Reaper and Apocalypse combo and get out your dot and all that stuff, you're going to run out of runes really quickly, and it might really stagger out your opener, which is pretty bad. You want to kind of dump that damage in the opener as quickly as possible. Now, could use some testing on your own end, but depending on how quickly your runes regenerate, which will be based on your haste, that'll kind of determine at what second in a 10-second countdown you want to use Army of the Dead. For me, I usually just use it at about 4 or 5 seconds left on the timer, like so. So if this were a pull, I'll wait until about 4 or 5, pop Army at about 2 seconds, pop a potion, pop my 2 buffs, pop my gargoyle on pull, add dot, apply wounds, up until 6 or more. Fortunately, I got unlucky with RNG there, but that's the way it goes with Unholy Dk these days. Soul Reaper, and Apocalypse. Now, just apply wounds, Death Coil, Clawing Shadows, Death Coil, Clawing Shadows, apply your dot back, generate some runic power, apply more wounds, Death Coil, Clawing Shadows, Death Coil, Clawing Shadows. And as you can see, that's pretty much really all there is to it, just making sure you Death Coil before every Clawing Shadows if you can, and you got the runic power for it. If you don't have the runic power for it, and you have the runes and not too many wounds to apply another Festering Strike, that's something else you can do too. But otherwise, that's pretty much the whole rotation. If you're doing an AoE rotation, not using Bursting Swords, you just want to throw down your dot, throw down a D&D, apply wounds, and then just keep doing the same single target necrosis rotation. And your dot, and you're cleaving your Clawing Shadows where you're standing in your D&D is pretty much where a majority of your AoE damage is going to come from. And I believe that pretty much covers what you're going to be doing in your rotation and your opener. Like I said, keep in mind I got a link in the description to a video that gives you a good idea of how this is going to work real time against an actual Croesus boss in Nighthold. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Thanks for your time.